This is Lauren Burke, and this is Lauren Live. And yeah, I'm off camera, but it doesn't matter. It is Sunday, March 22. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. And today's topic is Robert Mueller and Donald Trump, really. This really is inherently who Donald Trump is, this Robert Mueller moment. Robert Mueller died on Friday. He died on Friday. His family announced it yesterday, right at the beginning of the day. And to no one's surprise, Donald Trump shows up with a comment. His comment, of course, is negative, but this is essentially who Donald Trump is. This really, to me, represents and reflects who Donald Trump really, truly is to his core. He is a person who is deeply wrapped up in the idea that he has to be the center of attention at all times, otherwise known as narcissism. It doesn't matter what's going on, he always tries to be the center of attention. That's really hard to do when somebody dies, particularly somebody who is as noteworthy as Robert Mueller, because Robert Mueller was, of course, the former director of the FBI, who investigated several things, one of which, of course, was Donald Trump. He can't stand the fact that, of course, he was the subject of what was known as the Mueller investigation. And of course, Donald Trump could not leave this moment of Robert Mueller's passing without saying something, right?
He was 81 years old. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani on with us today to discuss this. And Nima, you and I were going to talk about a completely different story today. And then we heard about Mueller's passing, and we decided to talk about what he's really known for to today's generation. For a lot of people, the Mueller investigation was their first exposure to how a special counsel even works. And then it really turned into this national daily drama at the time.
Yeah, and this man was a Marine, served his country in a very dangerous war. I mean, this guy is everything that Donald Trump isn't. I think that's the other thing, too, that is very annoying to Donald Trump. Good morning to We Lock Nation. Uh, And you'll notice that with Barack Obama, people like Barack Obama and Donald Trump, he flips out. He flips out because he can never be these people. He just can't be them, and he can't be as popular as they are. So he's chosen to just be the guy that you pay attention to in these types of moments. I'll be back in about 40 seconds. Okay, so yesterday it was announced by the family of Robert Mueller, the former FBI director, that he passed away on Friday. He had Parkinson's disease and his health had been declining in recent years. It wasn't a huge shock. He was 82 years old, and I think the folks that were close to him knew that this was coming. It wasn't as if it was a huge shock, but of course, the question becomes, I mean, obviously, it'll be a huge funeral, probably at a National Cathedral style thing. It depends on, of course, what the family wants. But Robert Mueller was such a prominent figure that it wouldn't surprise me that he gets the National Cathedral treatment at any rate. So, what does Donald Trump do in that moment? what does what does he do in that moment? The question becomes, really, he's not central to this, of course. This is really about the life of Robert Mueller. And part of Trump's game is to rob the attention away from anyone else in any given moment. You'll notice that when somebody else is getting attention, somebody else is getting accolades, somebody else is getting something. You saw the whole crazy show over Barack Obama, of course, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and now Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. The guy is so incredibly toxic. Now we've known that, but this to me is a particular window into his narcissism, because to me this really reveals who he really truly is as a person and what's really the focus and cornerstone of his personality. Somebody dies, and the first thing that comes into Donald Trump's mind, the first thing that comes into his head, is to say something or do something that distracts away from that person's life and away from that person's passing. That is the strategy all in a nutshell. Now he knew by saying something outrageous that that would be what would happen. You got to always remember Donald Trump. He's been around for so long. He's been around for so long, and he's dealt with the biggest media market in the country, one of the biggest media markets in the world, and of course, that would be New York. He came up on this idea of how you get attention, how you change the subject. He is the king of the look at the I'm sorry, look at the squirrel strategy. The look at the squirrel strategy in communications is simply to get the media to change subjects off of the thing that you don't want them paying attention to. Now, I don't need to tell the audience, but I'll say it because it needs to be said. Typically, when somebody dies, even people who have been vilified during their career, the reaction is simply to just go over their lives. People who don't like that person generally don't comment. They just don't say anything. You didn't like the person, you didn't like the person. You have every right not to like or like whoever you want. But typically, what people don't say anything. Now, of course, we're dealing with somebody who is in high office. He's the president of the United States. He knows that. He knows that he is going to get attention off of these things. Okay. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of Trump critics out there, as we've all known. And I think, of course, that's well earned. But it was pretty amazing to see some of the comments from the right yesterday. And some, of course, you may remember last year when Charlie Kirk was murdered, it was everybody was policed and everybody had to shut their mouth. And how dare you say anything negative about Charlie Kirk? And people were getting fired from their jobs. A professor got fired, and he sued and he won millions of dollars. And so all that. And now you have this moment where Trump writes on social media, Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. President Donald J. Trump. Of course, what's so insane about him doing this, other than the obvious, is that at some point, this moment comes for us all. Donald Trump seems to be acting as if this moment of death is not going to come for him. Well, we can always assure each other, all of us in this country and world on this planet, it comes for everybody at some point. And this, of course, this type of thing is the perfect thing to bring up when that moment comes. I mean, what is he, 78? He is very, very odd, frankly. He's just odd. He's a person who seems to think, I guess, that the rules don't apply to him in any way. And of course they do. And one rule that applies to him, of course, just as it does to everybody else, is death and taxes. But Brit Hume, of course, who is a Fox News commentator and was a Fox News anchor once upon a time, I actually worked with him when I worked at ABC News many years ago. I actually worked with his son, unfortunately, tragically, many years ago in the 1990s. Brit Hume had a son that committed suicide, major tragedy, and I happened to work with him at the Hill newspaper. At any rate, Brit Hume comes out and says, this is the kind of stuff Trump does that makes people not just oppose him, but hate him. There was no need to say anything. Well, that's the understatement of the year, right? You really typically, most people don't say anything when there's somebody who passes away that they don't like. Trump insists, of course, on saying something, right? Because I got to say something, because I can't have a situation where this guy is getting attention that I'm not getting. And of course, he hated Robert Mueller because Robert Mueller investigated him. It's sort of funny because Robert Mueller, of all the FBI directors, was the least political, didn't make any, comments outside of his job, very professional in the way he would conduct things, didn't do interviews, didn't do a lot of talking. He's the type of individual who would just do stuff and not really engage in the PR aspect of the job of FBI director. He was very sort of kept things closely kept, and that is a rare, rare, rare occurrence in the types of elected officials, not that FBI's elected officials, but government officials that we have today. People can't stop talking these days. They just can't stop talking. Yes, Mike, how you doing? If Obama did something like that, of course this would be a major scandal. Now, of course, Trump has brought the dialogue in our politics so low that when he does something, it's judged differently because he's done so many crazy things that people are just like, oh, him again. But this one kind of hit a little bit. I mean, because everybody's had the experience in their life of a loved one passing away. Everybody's had that experience, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. They know what it feels like. It is a helpless feeling. There's nothing you do about death. It happens quite frequently unexpectedly. And, it brings back the memory and the feelings of that person. And it is something that everybody can identify with, which is part of the reason why I think there was a very strong reaction to this. Even for people who might not recall who Robert Mueller was, may not care who Robert Mueller was, but just the simple concept of the disrespect for death is something that a lot of people can really identify with and really think about how they would feel if this was their loved one, etc., and so on. Um, he's narcissistic, and Mike, you're right. He is narcissistic, and he is entitled, and he is a racist. It really is kind of, this guy was born in the petri dish of entitlement, born into an entitled family, lives in a rich section of Queens, New York, goes to a little silly military school that he went to, and was handed everything in his life, including a lot of money to start a business in real estate. Trump was, of course, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he was the type of person born on third base, and he thinks he hit a triple. Unlike, other people like, I would think, just off the top of my head, Michael Bloomberg, for example, was a self-made millionaire. There's a lot of self-mades out there. Warren Buffett, starting with very average, but they were smart enough to figure out how to make $1 into two. Donald Trump is not that at all, as I think a lot of people understand. Donald Trump was created by his family. And what was created was, unfortunately, a person, an individual who just has no sense of moral anything. And he ends up, I think, what he actually did was he was jealous of Barack Obama. Ends up being the president of the United States because he couldn't stand the fact that a black man had something that he could not get at the time, and ends up running for office. So he puts this out, and there's a ton of commentary about it. I would say certainly, yeah, Politico is right. The Democrats did pile on. The Republicans, of course, are very, very, very quiet. Very quiet. Interesting enough, Stephen A. Smith, who's been cosplaying as a Republican, wrote, "See, this is the BS I'm talking about. This is a disgusting thing coming from our commander in chief, especially about a veteran and Purple Heart recipient. Damn shameful." Even Stephen Smith couldn't play the game on that one. I mean, he just said, "Wow." I mean, it is one of those things on a level that Rick Wilson always has the right answer. Donald Trump, of course, was a draft dodger. I mean, even more insane here. And Robert Mueller went to Vietnam again, fought in one of our most dangerous wars, and while Donald Trump was playing, I guess, playing soldier at some little silly ass military school, Robert Mueller was doing the real thing in the real world and risking his life, and of course, did get a Purple Heart. It is amazing when you think about it. I mean, it really, really is amazing that Donald Trump seems to always go after people that he can never be, right? So you got the dynamic, of course, of Barack Obama. His obsession with Barack Obama is pretty obvious. His obsession with Barack Obama is to me really indicative of the fact that he is in fact a just a absolute toxic freaking level narcissist. I'm gonna go to chat in a minute. Please hit the like button. Thank you. And I just think that this was a real window. I mean, we've had many real windows into Donald Trump. Many real windows, but this one to me was the epitome of his personality. He's running to the phone to make sure that he says something that can kind of divert the attention off of Mueller. Of course, you can never really do that. Robert Mueller's career is always going to be more than Donald Trump. The war, the service in Vietnam alone, okay, you have to do anything else. You don't have to do FBI or anything else. The service in Vietnam alone is still huge. So anyway, to look at the chat, yeah, so we unlock nation. I'm still at all on how Trump is president in the first place. Who did he pay off? You know what? It's funny about politics. It does really reward people who take a risk. Once your name gets on that ballot, and there's two names on that ballot, I'm not going to say you have a 50-50 chance of winning, but anyone on the ballot can win, and unpredictable things happen all the time in elections. And here you had Donald Trump, who was a political novice and never, of course, served in politics, served in public office before, and he decided to run and he won. And you could say it. I've seen it in congressional races. I've seen it in much lower races. Just the fact that you get out there, you can become president. You become governor. You become president. But you're halfway there just by running, getting on the ballot. Okay, let's see here. Skippy. The Democratic Party's favorability among Americans stands at a record low, according to the. Yeah, this is true. Yeah. Well, everybody in politics, generally speaking, has low favorability. That's definitely true. The thing to remember, though, is that Donald Trump has a record favorability going on right now, like never before seen. It's not Democratic Party has a great one, but anybody has anything better than his. Obama said that Cambridge. So Mike, Obama said the Cambridge police officer acted stupidly and he was forced to walk his comments back with Skip Gates. That's right. That's the famous beer summit incident where Skip Gates somehow was arrested at his own home for absolutely nothing, really. I think it was a failure to obey charge, something fake like that. And of course, Obama stated the obvious, which is that the officer did do the wrong thing, to be black in Cambridge, and all of a sudden he's sort of in this position where, oh, I've got to apologize, and there's a beer summit, make it all better and make people feel good about themselves. Of course, Donald Trump, of course, never shows any desire whatsoever to make anyone feel good about anything. But this is toxic level narcissism. This is what happens when you don't correct your kids when they're little. And Trump is just this guy. His parents must have let him run wild because there's no corrective mechanism in his head. There's just nothing. And I think this is why a lot of people have speculated that there might be something mentally wrong with him. On Don Lemon's show, Don Lemon has had a series of medical professionals, of course, none of whom are a doctor of the president, but they specialize in neuro diseases and neuroscience and Alzheimer's, etc., and so on. But I agree with Trisha in 1989. He is, in fact, a hateful mother effer. I'm not going to curse because sometimes my mother listens to this. But yeah, Trump is a hater. He's a big time hater. A big time hater. Uh I wouldn't say deserves to be president. All I would say is I've seen in politics people running for office that were not qualified, that were not the best name on there, that didn't have the personality, and oftentimes were a joke. And they win a lot of times because their opponent fails. Their opponent, I mean, the Democrats failed in 2024 to run somebody who could beat Donald Trump. And they ran an 80 something year old knowing that he did have some issues and it didn't work. So politics being what it is, we unlock nation, very unpredictable. Anyone can win. You just don't know what's going to happen during course of a campaign, particularly a presidential campaign, a 2-year campaign. A lot can happen, as we learned in 2024. Harry the hairy hamster. That's funny. I don't know if a bunch of lefties were celebrating Charlie. I mean, I'm like, really, really. Okay, I don't know. There was a bunch of people celebrating Charlie Kirk. Some people were, but I don't think the majority of people on the left or anything. There's no indication and no verification that was true. Um, People couldn't stand Charlie Kirk, but what I'm more interested in this moment is everybody on the right suddenly forgetting what the First Amendment was, and we had to all bow down to the life and times of Charlie Kirk. And of course, that same right wing is not mentioning anything in this moment about Robert Mueller, about how this is going down. Nobody's saying anything because, this is how they roll. It's like the rules are always for somebody else. And this is a perfect example of how their silence really is kind of, to me, I wouldn't say it's agreement necessarily, but it just shows you how the rules are always different in politics for Donald Trump and for so many others, so many other. Trump lifts sanctions on Iran's oil while America is still at war. Iran. He's an absolute moron. This is Stanley. Yeah, I've not looked at the sanctions story, but I'll probably do something on gasoline again at some point today. Or the TSA. You've got these dual problems happening: the TSA problem at the airports, and of course the gasoline prices. But right now we're talking about the behavior of the president and whether or not this indicates a mental condition, which is something a lot of people have analyzed. A lot of people have asked that question. Does the president have a mental condition? Is something going on? What normal person does this type of thing? I mean, I do wonder that. Does Donald Trump have some sort of dementia going on? And that's something that, of course, no one no one knows. No one knows what's going on with this guy. This sort of ability, this wanting to say anything, and I just want to run my mouth. And there's been a lot of analysis by doctors online. This one is 6 days ago. The one that I'm about to bring up was only 6 days ago, but this is a typical thing here. A lot of analysis about his health. A lot. And there's been some really interesting comments.
Frontotemporal dementia. He exhibits a couple of characteristic symptoms. Number one is confabulation, which is where the frontotemporal dementia patient fills in the holes in their memory with lies that they make up, but that they 100% believe.
A critical component to mind control. Being made over to be clones of the person who's at the top of the pyramid.
Interested in the subject because of my own cult involvement. I was recruited in 1974 into a front group.
Moving
to be talking again with Adam James of Epistemic Crisis, which I just checked before we recorded this, Adam, and you have 695,000 followers on Instagram. You're a phenom. Adam, you are a licensed physical therapist who's worked extensively with geriatric patients, but very interestingly, you were raised in Christian nationalism and MAGA. You were even a pastor of a Christian New Apostolic Reformation cult, but you're really most well known as a health and political content creator.
Whoa, 700,000 people on Instagram. I'm gonna get back to that in a second. I'm just gonna go back to the chat for a second. How do you put your name on the ballot we unlock? You got to get the nomination of the party. You have to, of course, participate in the primary season. You, of course, to do that, have to get petitions to get on the ballot. Funny thing, for member of Congress, it really isn't that many. I think it's like 2,000 or something like that. For president of the United States, it's a little bit more. But the point is, all I'm saying is that you gotta understand that, when they say that life favors the bold, it really does. It's really true in politics. I've seen people get on the ballot and get very fortunate. And you can see from some of our members of Congress, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, these people are not rocket scientists. They're not. And of course, we live in a very gerrymandered country, and a lot of places, once you get on the ballot, you win in the primary. So the general election doesn't matter that much. It's really the primary competition. And that's really what's going on. Yes, let me see what else is going on here. I put the link to the chat that's on the screen in the I put the link to that video that's on the screen in the chat because these guys are going to talk about the health of Donald Trump. The guy on the right is a MAGA right-wing dude that you would not think would be critical of Donald Trump, and did this whole analysis on Trump's health. He thinks he has dementia. I don't know enough about dementia to know whether or not that makes you tweet crazy stuff when somebody dies. That is not something I'm an expert in. I only know that this guy exhibits a deep, deep, dark narcissism and need for attention that is really unbelievable. It's on a level, it's just unbelievable. Let's get back to these guys for a second.
Using your expertise on cognitive and physical decline, as well as your firsthand knowledge about how Christian nationalist cults work, you've been sounding the alarm about Donald Trump's administration as they attempt to cover up signs of all of his ailments. Welcome, Adam, and thanks for joining me again. And tell us about you and your background and your work, please.
Yeah, I born and raised in Augusta, Georgia. Still live here now. Licensed physical therapist for the last 15 years. The last 14 years have been in home health care. The vast majority of our patients are geriatric. They have the same chronic conditions that I believe the president also has. And
I'm going to move this
right,
up.
and you're referring to.
I'm going to move this up a little bit to where he talks about Trump. They very nicely chaptered this.
The frontotemporal dementia patient fills in the holes in their memory with lies that they make up, but that they 100% believe. And so,
let's hear that again.
Right, and you're referring to the health of the president, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I believe at this point, the president has frontotemporal dementia. He exhibits a couple of characteristic symptoms. Number one is confabulation, which is where the frontotemporal dementia patient fills in the holes in their memory with lies that they make up, but that they 100% believe. And so I did a video recently where Trump was being interviewed by Dan Bongino, who was formerly the deputy director of the FBI, and he's quit that job and gone back to podcasting where the real money is. And he was interviewing the president about Tina Peters in Colorado, who has been charged with state crimes because of her interference in the 2020 election, I believe, presidential election.
I think
Bongino asked Trump, "What's about Tina Peters?" Trump begins to, rant about Peters for 2 or 3 minutes, and literally everything he said about Peters was false. Everything. The reason that she's in jail, what she actually did at the polling location.
Wow. Okay, so this is a doctor who is talking about what he believes, actually a conservative doctor, talking about what he believes is wrong with Donald Trump medically. Of course, he is not a doctor for the president of the United States. He is a doctor who deals with dementia patients. And this type of thing is all over the place on YouTube. I put the link in the chat. It is interesting to watch. Various doctors talking about what is wrong with the president. Why am I talking about this? Because yesterday we learned that Robert Mueller passed away, the former FBI director, at 82 years old. Interestingly enough, he had a brain disease he was dealing with as well, which is Parkinson's. And Donald Trump felt it necessary to come out and declare that he was glad that Robert Mueller was dead. And of course, the question becomes, who does that? Why does anybody do that? I'm going to go to the chat for a second. Yes, indeed. Good morning to everybody. It is 8:33 for me a.m. on the East Coast in Virginia. Yeah, Danny, interesting. Can't blame everything on Trump. He was a traitor just like the rest of the communist Democrats, fabricating false allegations. Interesting, Danny. I'm a I'm somebody who will be focusing on the subject of false allegations. And because I have been a crisis manager on top of everything else, working in politics, an accidental crisis manager, as it were, for the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, who was falsely accused of something that really destroyed his life, never recovered or hasn't recovered yet. He's young enough to recover, though, unlike so many other people like Al Franken, et cetera, and so on. Um, yeah, I agree, Trish. I agree. We are in danger with this man as president. And we got the Republican Party saying absolutely nothing. The party actually who's in power that could do something about it. But to get back to Danny's comment for a second, that back half of the comment about fabricating false allegations. Yeah, there's a lot to say about that. And I happen to work for somebody who was falsely accused. It is a very interesting topic because it remains one of the easiest ways to destroy somebody, which is false allegations, getting them into the media that is falling apart and doesn't investigate anything. And yeah, that includes the New York Times and the Washington Post. And when it comes to the New York Times in particular, the one thing that they really don't like investigating is a Me Too allegation because they created the Me Too movement. But that's another video. But the false allegation issue is a huge, huge issue. Getting back to Robert Mueller, the reaction to his death from the President of the United States and the analysis on the screen by a doctor who thinks that he's got a dementia issue.
He said that Peters has cancer. She does not have cancer. She's a cancer survivor. I mean, just he went on for several minutes and it was 100% false. And it's difficult to tell if he's just, the world's best BSer or if he's, just forgetting completely. But no, this is what confabulation looks like. He can't remember all the details, but he's so naturally good at extemporaneous speaking that he fills it in.
He's talking about a condition that a lot of dementia patients have of making things up and believing what they make up. Absolutely believing what they make up. This man is not a doctor for the President of the United States, but he is a medical professional who deals with dementia patients, and he's speaking to that. This is, again, this type of interview is all over YouTube. There's several doctors out there trying to analyze the president's behavior. To say that this is a dangerous situation would be a vast understatement. We have a president of the United States that probably has a mental condition. Let's just be real and just put it out there. I mean, he likely has a medical condition. And when you do things like what he did yesterday, this is where it really starts to show itself. If one of our relatives did this that wasn't the president of the United States, we'd have a reaction. And he's always in this weird sort of vibe of, I've got to be commenting on everything and I've got to be saying something. I do think it's certainly a blend of some sort of medical condition and some deep, deep narcissism, which of course is completely unsurprising given his upbringing. Thanks everybody for joining. Please hit the like button. Gonna go a few more minutes here. This is something that comes up all the time. It's not the first time, of course, Donald Trump has said something ridiculous and outrageous. I mean, we know that. We've seen this over time. But when it comes to death, usually a sacred thing, right? Even like I said, even when it's somebody that people don't generally like, it's still a sacred thing. It's something you don't play with, you don't joke with, you don't make fun of, you don't make light of. And here you have Donald Trump doing all of those things. I do think he's kind of got a fake macho edge too. Ooh, look at I'm so tough. I'm so tough. I can say whatever I want and you can't stop me. There's a little edge of that in there, but in the end, it comes across as deeply, deeply narcissistic, deeply pathetic, deeply embarrassing, and just really just weird, quite frankly.
Yeah. So let me just say, you're not diagnosing him. You're observing as a professional who's worked with elderly. This is what it looks like to you. So.
Correct.
Just to be clear for the people who are going to be sticklers saying, what right do you have? You haven't done all of the, scientific medical tests specifically on Trump's body.
Yeah, I don't know that you need any scientific medical test to figure out something's wrong with this guy. We unlock nation. Trump's not tough at all. That's why he pays others to do his fighting for him. You can say that again. These guys that run their mouth, it never fails. Boy, they love sending other people's kids overseas to get killed in places like Iran to the tune of, $2 billion of our tax money a day. But he's never served in the military. And to my knowledge, and again, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows of anybody. To my knowledge, there's nobody in the Trump family that's been in the military. Nobody. Not one person that I can think of. Not his father, certainly not any of his sons. Nobody in the Trump family has served in the military, but boy, do they love sending other people and talking tough. And Jared Kushner's over there and they're talking tough and they want to do this and that. Nobody's had a uniform on. That's actually hard to do. I mean, I myself have 5 people in my family I can name who've been in the military. My sister, my nephew. I mean, it's like, you know, most people have at least one family member. By the way, it's not like, you're going to go to hell if you have no family members in the military. There's nothing terribly wrong with that. I'm just saying our military is such a thing in our country. So it's a place a lot of people go for the benefits, place a lot of people go for the GI Bill, place a lot of people go to travel the world. So there's a lot of people in our military that join. And for somebody to get anywhere near public service, and not only have you never been in the military, not disqualifying, but true that he's never been in the military, but nobody in your family has been in the military, and then you want to talk tough all the time. It's always interesting. Okay, Starboy. I have no idea. See, I didn't study my Bible, though I did go to Catholic high school for 2 years, but I'm a Baptist. My mother, this is one from my mother, Ecclesiastes 10:1. My mother would know that. I wish she was on the chat. She would know that, Starboy the Knight. I don't know my Bible. You tell me, you educate me on that. How can you believe they're tough? I actually don't believe he's tough. I'm just saying he's that fake tough. Trump is that fake tough thing of, talking tough all the time, but never actually getting involved in any real conflict. Try. Can you help me try and campaign for Crockett to become the next president? Yeah, Jasmine Crockett has not. We Unlock Nation, of course, she has not said what she's doing, as you probably know. But I would expect that she would do something in public service. Remembering that Jasmine Crockett is an attorney and was a prosecutor, she was a public defender. She probably will get back in politics in some way, whether that's running for president. Of course, we don't know yet. There's rumors all around about Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez either running for president or running for the U.S. Senate for Chuck Schumer's seat. The reason I bring that up is that age group is the same age group as Jasmine Crockett. It wouldn't surprise me if she did run for something big, like, Ted Cruz's seat or governor. It wouldn't be governor because that just happened in Texas. But I'm just saying, wouldn't surprise me if she ran. And if she does, there will be some obvious campaign connection, campaign contact information that might answer your question there. Remembering that part of the criticism of her Senate campaign was that she wasn't very organized. So be patient. I think she probably learned a lesson. When people run and make mistakes and lose elections they should have won, they tend to improve down the line, particularly at her age. She's really young. The White House doctor who falsified Trump's annual physical report should be changed. Yeah. How about that, Tisha? So, we all know that the president, who is supposed to make his medical records, the custom has always been that the president makes his medical records public. Of course, Donald Trump didn't do that. Wow, what a shock. And so the doctor who came in and said, "Oh, he's in perfect health," and all this stuff. That clearly there was something sketchy about that, to say the least. This is always very interesting, this idea that you can put out false medical information. These are things that we don't really know about. We can kind of outwardly see some of the issues with Trump, his hands, and he had that really weird thing on his neck the other day. So something's going on. Could be just old age in some cases, but there is something clearly going on with him. It is the biggest open secret in the world.
But I need to comment on what you just said about whether he was BSing. And I don't know if you've read any of David K. Johnston's books on Trump, but he covered Trump before anyone else covered Trump. And his books are fantastic. He's a professor. But when Trump owned the Atlantic City gambling.
Okay, they're getting a little bit off topic here. The reason I keep stopping them too is that I don't want to get a copyright strike. So I will say this. I mean, that video, like I said, is very that's all over the place on the internet with regard to analyzing Trump's health. Trisha. I have so many Trishas in my life that I know. I hope AOC thinks twice about running because outside New York, I don't know if you never know. You actually never know. Remembering that the Hispanic population in the country is the largest minority group in the United States, she would do well in places like, certainly places like Texas, obviously these bigger states that you need. Of course, any Democrat would do well in California. You never know. I mean, you never know. She's extremely smart. So I will be doing a Jasmine Crockett, by the way, speaking of young politicians who are smart, I will be doing a Crockett video soon. Crockett did mess around a little bit and believe her own hype. That is not a untrue statement. Field General. Yeah, again, you learn. She's young. People learn. They run, particularly on a statewide campaign. You really learn. I've worked on a few statewide campaigns, and you learn a lot that you would not have realized when you're just running for a congressional seat or a state house seat in a state or something like that. It's just a completely different thing. So I think she learned a lot from that, and hopefully will improve in her next race. But to get back to the subject of what is wrong with Donald Trump, something's up with Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. The question is, are we ever going to find out what that is? Or is it going to always remain a mystery? It might, but we may never find out. This is the type of thing that we may never find out. We might just never find out. She is I'm sorry. Trump is the type of person who keeps things extremely secret. So that you just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. Mike, Lauren, coincidentally, Trump didn't have anything negative to say about Chuck. Really, nobody had anything to say about negative to say about Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is very well liked. He really was very well liked. Chuck Norris is extremely entertaining. People love martial arts too. So, there's a lot going on there. In his heyday, he was quite something. And even after that, as he got older, so that didn't surprise me. Donald Trump is really sort of jumping onto the fame of somebody else when he makes these comments, like the one he made about Robert Mueller. He's jumping onto their fame because he's extremely narcissistic and knows that person's going to get attention in death. But that's how broken he is, that he would even think about that. Most people wouldn't even think about that, right? But Trump is broken. There's something wrong with him, and it's a question of what it is and whether or not we're ever going to find out about it. I tend to doubt we're ever going to find out, actually. We're just now, what is it, 20 years later? We're just now finding out the details of the Epstein files. What are the chances we're going to find out about his medical condition? So, I mean, I think it's a complicated thing in that sense because he's really good at hiding things, and he's got a lot of associates that help him hide things. Data says Blue Democrat states 8:46. It is 8:47 a.m. I'm Lauren Burke. It is early. I'm Lauren, and I've worked in politics in New York and Virginia. And in Washington, D.C., I've worked for 4 members of Congress. I'm about to start a mail club, by the way. The mail club link is in the video description. I don't know whether you guys out there know it, but mail clubs are starting to become a thing because people want that mail connection. And we're getting into the world of AI and virtual, and people getting sick of the lack of connection. So people are actually paying money to have a letter sent to them that has very interesting things in it, usually a letter and some other stuff. In my case, art, photography, letters, this and that. But it is interesting to think about because the post office has been failing. But that's another video. To get back to Robert Mueller, Robert Mueller passed away on Friday. His family announced he will have I suspect, a massively huge funeral. And you're going to see several former presidents of the United States attend that funeral. That's absolutely guaranteed. You will likely, of course, not see Donald Trump. But then Donald Trump doesn't attend anything. You notice Jesse Jackson Sr. died last month. The funeral, of course, was this month, and met a bunch of presidents there. And of course, Donald Trump did not attend. What a shock. He probably wasn't invited. He might not have been invited. He might have been invited. I don't know, but he didn't attend. Everybody reporting on the comments of Donald Trump with regard to Robert Mueller. A lot of people blowing up Trump on this thing and being very critical. It is amazing to think about how Trump behaves. And of course, like I said, there's been a lot of analysis about his health, about whether or not there is something organically wrong with him and mentally wrong with him. And that question is out there. The answer, unfortunately, is not out there. But the question is out there. Whether or not we can answer it remains a mystery. And I will say that I think it's quite likely who behaves like this. It's not normal and shouldn't be taken as normal and shouldn't just go by unmentioned and untalked about, in my view. And a lot of people, of course, did mention it. There were a lot of people who thought that there was something extremely wrong with Trump's comments as of yesterday with regard to the former FBI director, Robert Mueller, and proclaiming that I'm glad he's dead. Those are the real, that's real taboo to wish somebody's death. Bad luck. And that's just not a good idea. Not a good idea. Yeah. So at any rate, is Lauren Burke. I am about to check out because I want to check into a few farmers markets this morning. It is the weekend. But then again, I'm going to go to the chat a few more times here. Let's see. Let's see what's going on in the chat. 1 second. I'll be there in a minute. Check. There's a lot of people interested in this topic, and I can understand why. Robert Mueller, of course, was a war hero and a very well-known public servant as not only the director of FBI, but certainly his war, like I said, his war experience alone is something of a story. He was a Purple Heart winner, as is why I say that his funeral is going to be huge. Remember what he said about Iran? What's the difference? Aren't they all Muslim? Yeah, he says careless things all the time. And a lot of people, of course, are speculating something is wrong with him mentally. There is no doubt about that. That is an ongoing conversation. How would you feel if they wanted? How about that? Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone wants anything. Very rarely does anybody say anything like that about the president, about wanting him to, because you could have a Secret Service come out and visit you on comments like that. So a lot of people steer clear of that type of language for that very reason. We get two choices. If both choices continue to plunder and play, yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, I mean, hits. I've heard that. I mean, the people do feel a certain sense that these parties are not that much different. Unfortunately, because of money in politics, there's a lot of logic to that. Because when it comes to money in politics, both parties are controlled by big money, and a lot of times the same big money. You particularly see that with the tech sector. So a lot of people feel like both choices on the ballot are not particularly divergent. I mean, there's a sense there. Now with the MAGA right, though, that sense is disappearing a little bit because the MAGA right has created some things that the Democrats aren't even getting close to doing, certainly with regard to going after and targeting history and other things as well. And I certainly don't think any of the Democrats, whether it was Harris or Biden, would have ever started a war in Iran. I don't think that would have happened either. So, but I'm just saying there are some similarities between the two political parties, and people have often complained about no matter who you vote for, you get a sense of corruption. I see that, and I understand that comment. Yeah, true. A Democrat hasn't won statewide in decades. I think it was 94. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats keep thinking that they can win, but you got to try to win. You do have to try to win. I can't say, even though I haven't won since in a long time. I think it was Ann Richards was the last time, which would be probably late 90s. you still got to put candidates up. But I get it. I do think Jasmine Crockett is going to try something again, even with that. The fact that she tried this one would tell you that she believes that it's possible to win in Texas. But again, whether you've won or not, somebody's got to make the sacrifice and actually get on the ballot. I'm just going through the chat here before I check out on the subject of Donald Trump's comments after the death of Robert Mueller. Unbelievable situation. Unbelievable. Just when you think he can't go lower, he goes lower. Big difference between President Biden, Lift Every Voice initiative, and Donald Trump. How about that? Well, there really is no comparison between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Trump is, of course, on a revenge campaign. So much of what we're seeing is somebody who has decided that they're going to go after all of their perceived political enemies. And that's what he's doing on so many fronts. Anytime soon, not according to, yeah, probably right. Probably right, Ricky Clark. Probably right. They probably aren't winning anytime soon. But the demographics of the country are changing. When you have a wave election too, you see some weird stuff. This is going to be a wave election this November because we have a war going on. We have approaching $5, $4, $5 gasoline. And people hate that. People hate war and they hate paying $5 in gasoline. And that's the type of thing that sets up a wave election. We also have the historic precedent of the party that is in power in the White House getting creamed in the midterms, no matter who that party is. That doesn't mean the Democrats going to win Texas or statewide, but we're going to see James Talarico is on the ballot. We'll see who the Republicans put up. They have a runoff. If it's Paxton, I think James Talarico has a really good shot. If it's Cornyn, I suspect the Republicans will win Texas again. So we'll see. Data suggests that blue Democrats states generally contribute more in federal taxes. That is, yeah, gamer guy. That is true. So the blue states, and really they happen to be large states. California, New York certainly contribute more in taxes than the smaller red states, particularly in the South. And as you probably know, in the South, when it comes to states like Alabama, Mississippi, these are states that are wrestling with the issue of poverty, and because of that, are not paying into federal money like states like New York and California, where millionaires and billionaires tend to reside. New York with the famous Billionaires Row at the top of Central Park, which is incredible. Let me see. Everyone calling they're not winning anytime soon. Okay. Read that one. I think I'm pretty much done here. Everybody should enjoy their Sunday. It's 80 degrees where I am in Virginia. It's almost 9 a.m. on the East Coast. Mary, I voted for the clown that would have I'm just reading some of the comments. Comments are hilarious. Thanks for the comments. Really appreciate it. Please hit the like button if you can. Really appreciate that. I'm on every day. This Lauren Live. Do a live every single day at some point. Try to make it somewhere around the 9 o'clock hour. I have been starting early at 8 o'clock because I've got a ton of stuff to do. I also noticed that people wake up right around the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock hour. And that is something that is, I'm learning that the thing blows up when I start this early. Nice to see some of our return visitors here. Hit Zone. I love the dog avatar. I grew up with a bunch of dogs. They were German Shepherds, but love a dog avatar. Mike, good seeing you. A lot to talk about here. We Unlock Nation. Good seeing you. I'll do a Jasmine Crockett pretty soon. Just gonna find out what she's up to. I talk to her every now and then on Capitol Hill. She's pretty good with media, but she keeps it to a very tight group, usually the Dallas Morning News and a fellow called Mike Jones. Michael Jones has a Substack called Once Upon a Hill. Once Upon a Hill. Highly suggested. This reporter who does this Substack I'm going to put on the screen right now talks to Jasmine Crockett on a regular basis. He's from Texas, and they just have a little bit of a connection. He writes about her regularly. And he has a Substack called Once Upon a Hill. I'll put the link in the description. His name is Mike Jones. He's a Texan. He's one of the few reporters in the country that Jasmine Crockett speaks with. I mean, it's just like wild stuff, which is pretty exciting actually. I'm surprised he doesn't have a Jasmine Crockett in this front top thing. He posts pretty much every day. I see he's posting multiple times a day in some of these. There's a lot going on in Capitol Hill, trying to jam through the SAVE Act. It's another video I have to do. But at any rate, Michael Jones has the Substack. Once Upon a Hill covers Capitol Hill. I cover Capitol Hill as well. I also cover Virginia politics, which I used to work in. So Substack I have is Black Virginia News. If you're in Virginia and you're in the Black community, there you go. Subscribe. There's a lot going on in Virginia, and there is no real statewide publication in Virginia that covers the Black community. We do have two historic newspapers, the Roanoke Times in Roanoke and the New Journaling Guide. Unfortunately, the Richmond Free Press just went out of business like 2 weeks ago. Richmond Free Press was 30 years old. And so I've got Black Virginia News. You've got Black Virginia News. And you've got Michael Jones. He is covering Jasmine Crockett very closely. He tends to find things out about her that nobody finds out about in reports. So you might want to pay attention to Once Upon a Hill. All right. God bless you all. Indeed, Ricky. Ricky Clark. At any rate, Trump is an interesting character. We'll see if we find out more about his health. We're gonna, I think, find out the hard way. Unfortunately, America isn't going to vote for a woman yet. I don't know about that. Definitely there is is that another dog avatar out there? Rudy. Is that Rudy 1971? Is it RUT 1971? RUT 1971. Okay, yeah, there's another dog avatar. I love it. I love Jasmine, but sadly America isn't going to vote a woman in yet. I think on the presidential level that'll be difficult. On the statewide level, we're seeing some differences here. We do have a woman governor in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger. Mickey Sherrill was elected governor in New Jersey. So we're seeing women break through on the statewide side. And when you see that, you're generally going to see it nationally. So it's coming, but it'll take a while. It'll take a generation. The younger generation coming up, I think, is a lot less resistant to women in power positions. The older generation, I'm not sure, is all that excited. And so part of what you're seeing is that. But, as time goes on, it gets a little bit easier, a little bit easier. So we'll see what happens. There's a rumor that Ben Netanyahu has passed away. I think that rumor is certainly false, but for some reason it keeps popping up on the internet. But that's just the misinformation quadrant of the internet that we live with. At any rate, this episode was about, of course, Robert Mueller, the passing of the former FBI director. As I said, the funeral for Robert Mueller will be huge, absolutely huge. The nature of his death indicates to me that they probably were able to plan that out well in advance, so we should get some information on what the funeral arrangements are. I suspect it will involve National Cathedral, not only because National Cathedral is huge, but that is always the place of honor for people who are huge in our government, and he was huge, Robert Mueller. Have a wonderful day, Trisha. See you on the next one or whenever. There is going to be a Jasmine Crockett one coming up fairly soon. I want to thank everybody for joining. Thanks for the questions. Please hit the like button. I don't care if the questions are in disagreement, because I am not sensitive. I am from the Bronx, New York. My mother's from Virginia. And I have no problem with disagreement. I'm Lauren Burke. I will be back soon. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
get time.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I make sure that my legends get a payoff.
Totally do.
They get their money's worth.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
Independent media, you're kicking ass. Talking about sounds like Mondambi. And I got two questions. Why wouldn't you just be endorsing him? And also, are you talking to Mayor Adams and the governor?
With respect to affordability, in my opening day remarks here in the House of Representatives, I was very clear that House Democrats were going to focus on lowering the high cost of living.
It's a negative commentary on a certain group of people for absolutely no reason. I actually don't think